For my first demonstration today, my first arrangement will be an upright or vertical moribana. Moribana refers to a lower container, so it's not a high-sided, it's a very low-level one. What I'll be using to hold materials in place is called a kenzan, and it's very similar to a Western-style frog or pin holder. The difference being that this is extremely heavy, and that's because it's meant to be able to hold very heavy branches and long branches in place. The needles are also slightly shorter than the Western one, and this is because of the low sides of the containers that we use. I've chosen today to use a brown rustic ceramic container because I thought it was indicative of the season and gives that feeling of fall and out walk in the countryside. The material I'm going to be using is gladiola leaves, which are these, and these have come from my yard. I like to use, especially in the autumn, the seasonal materials that show the various stages of life of the material. To me, this gives you a real sense of the passing of time. And although this is a vertical arrangement, I also want a little bit of curve in the leaves because otherwise a static straight line doesn't give that sense of movement. So this gives us a sense that we really are walking through and the breeze is blowing through the foliage. So I'm going to start with my first thing. And I'm using these leaves as my main stems. Sometimes you would use branches, but often you can use leaves. And I'm just placing them sort of in the center point of the kenzan. Because the material naturally curves this direction, I'm making what would be a left-hand arrangement. So all the material will sort of flow that direction. To give it some depth, I'm also going to add lines behind it. And although they look like they're in the same place, you can see that there's actually space in between. This will allow me to place material in there in the future, and that adds to the depth. Okay. I also want to add a little material toward the front. And what this will do is it brings the viewer into the center of the arrangement. Okay. I wanted to use autumn colors, so I've chosen this dark purple, which I think is really beautiful contrast with the green and the yellows of the leaves that I have selected. And when using these kind of mums, a lot of times people think they're sort of stuck with the way nature grew them, which is not necessarily true. We can manipulate them somewhat to get the lines that we want or the particular size of blossoms that we might want. And it's just a matter of kind of looking at your material to see which you might want to use. So in this particular one, although these are lovely, this flower is a little too big and I want a smaller flower up at the top. So I'm going to take that one off, but I'm going to save it because I might be able to use it later. An easy way to measure things, you can kind of try to stand and guess how you're doing it, but it's much easier if you just turn the material upside down and then see approximately where you might want to cut it, leaving a little extra because you can always take away more, but you can't put it back. I like to place some of the material between the leaves or the branch stems because, again, it gives you that sense of depth that you might not get otherwise. Now, let's put a little bit of mass toward the front. When the flower is bending one direction or the other, usually if it's going to go down near the front end of the arrangement, you want to turn it so that it faces back up toward the viewer. Again, this is designed to keep the viewer interested and feel like they are part of the arrangement. So I think I'm happy with the flowers. Now I wanted to add a little bit more interest and contrast. These are Hypericum. They're also called coffee beans. They come in various colors. This particular one, I thought I would use the lighter colored. Again, just because it gives a little bit of contrast, but it also relates to the lighter, paler colors in the leaves. And I'm going to go a little bit lower. When you buy a bundle of these in the store, and these came from Vaughn's, they'll look like this with lots of different leaves on them. And all I've done is strip away all the large leaves so that you really notice the little berries, because that's what I want to focus on. In my particular school, we are taught to demonstrate facing our audience. So I am actually making this backwards for me. But that is what we are trained to do, and it does allow the audience to feel a little bit more engaged. Now, this type of arrangement is really meant to be viewed from the front, and so it would be suitable on a side table or perhaps an entry hall table, so that you could see the beauty of it. I'll show you. If you look from the side, you can see a lot of the material tips forward. Again, that's to engage the viewer. But it also means it's not particularly lovely from the back. So you really do want it up against some kind of a wall or a screen or even a mirror. To cover the Kenzan in this particular material, I'm using Ligularia leaves. And these naturally come with a yellow spot. But Ligularia comes in lots and lots of different forms and different styles. Some are huge lily pad leaves, and some are quite small, like these. They grow all over the western part of San Diego County because they need a bit of shade and cooler air and a little bit more water. So they're not totally drought tolerant, but they'll grow under a tree very well. And that's where I have quite a few. I find it's easy to find floral materials in San Diego, but it's very difficult to find unusual leaves. And so I've concentrated on using the space in my own garden to provide myself with a variety of unusual leaves. I think I'm done. So, an upright Moribana.